Think of British and American English like two different operating systems running on the exact same computer. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into something so fascinating and honestly incredibly useful. We are breaking down the grammatical differences between British and American English. And no, we're not just talking about saying tomato versus tomato or the accents. We're looking under the hood at the actual grammatical rules. I'm going to lay all of this out clearly and simply so you can spot, understand, and totally master these variations. So here's the big secret right out of the gate. Yes, we are, technically speaking, the exact same language, but we actually use completely different rules, totally unique expressions, and really subtle preferences when it comes to grammar. If you've ever felt just a little bit confused watching a movie set in London after talking to a friend from New York, you aren't crazy. The software running under the surface of the language is just coded a bit differently. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a clear roadmap for you today. 1. Verbs in the past tense. 2. Everyday vocabulary and phrasing. 3. Spelling rule differences. 4. Prepositions and group nouns. And finally, number 5. Which English is correct? Section 1. Verbs and the past tense. Let's look at how we talk about the past. Imagine a quick micro scenario. You're standing at your front door, digging through your pockets, and you absolutely cannot get inside. In British English, when talking about a past action that has a direct result right this second, like being locked out, you use the present perfect tense. So you'd say, I've lost my key. Have you seen it? But listen to the American version. In the US, while you absolutely can use the present perfect, it is perfectly natural and way more common to just use the past simple. An American would simply say, I lost my key, or she went out, rather than she has gone out. Now, this difference becomes even more obvious when we throw in words like just, already, and yet. These words are massive triggers in the UK. British English loves to pair these words strictly with the present perfect. A British speaker will ask, have you finished your work yet? But jump across the pond, and in American English, it's totally natural to pair those exact same words with the simple past. An American speaker will confidently tell you, he already left, or he has already left. Both sound completely natural to an American ear. Then we have the modal verb shall. If you're hanging out in the UK, you will absolutely hear people using this. A British speaker might say, shall we go now? Or I shall be late. But in American English, shall is actually pretty rare. It sounds almost theatrical, or maybe a bit overly formal to an American. Instead, they default to should or will, asking, should we go now? Or stating, I will be late. Now, what's really interesting here is what happens after verbs like demand or insist. Listen to the sentence from a British perspective. I demanded that he should apologize. Do you hear that should tucked in there? Now listen to the American version. I demanded that he apologize. Americans prefer a much simpler form. They drop the should entirely. And hey, we literally can't talk about verbs without bringing up got versus gotten. In British English, the past participle of get is got. So you would hear, your English has got better. But American English uses gotten for the past participle, meaning you'll hear, your English has gotten better. Now, don't worry, there is one place both sides entirely agree. If you just want to say that you have something, both American and British speakers will happily say, I've got two brothers. Section 2. Everyday vocabulary and phrasing. Let's look at daily habits. Picture yourself finishing up a really tough workout at the gym. You're sweating, you're exhausted. In British English, when it's time to clean up, you have a bath or you have a shower. For instance, I had a long bath yesterday. But in American English, the verb shifts completely. An American will take a bath or take a shower. They'd say, I took a shower right after the gym. How about when there's no rush at all? When expressing a lack of necessity, a British speaker might comfortably say, we needn't hurry or we don't need to hurry. But to an American, needn't sounds incredibly strange, almost like a word from an old novel. Americans will almost exclusively say, we don't need to hurry. Let's frame this next one with a quick breakfast scenario. You've let your bread in the toaster far too long, and smoke is rising. In British English, the language allows for verbs to end in a harsh T sound for their past forms. A British speaker will say, the toast is burnt, or if a meal is totally ruined, the food was spoiled. American English, however, strongly prefers the standard ed ending. An American will look at that exact same smoking toaster and say, the toast is burned, or the food was spoiled. Section 3. Spelling rule differences. These are strictly visual divides on the page. While these words sound virtually identical when spoken out loud, how you type them is a completely different story.
Notice the strict British preference for the letter S in common verbs. In the UK, it's organize, specialize, realize, all spelled with an S. But in American English, those exact same words are spelled with a Z. Organize, specialize, realize.
Let's move to and see how this builds with the letter L. In British spelling, when you add an ending to a word like cancel or travel, you double the L, so canceled and traveling have two L's. American spelling, operating on its own entirely different logic, just drops one of those L's. So American canceled and traveling feature just a single L. Section 4, prepositions and group nouns. Let's dig into the subtle shifts that frequently trip up language learners. If there is a medical emergency, the phrasing you use actually depends on where the ambulance is parked. In British English, the phrasing is really lean. You would say, she was taken to hospital. No article, just to hospital. But in American English, they always add the article the. An American will say, she was taken to the hospital. Let's rapid fire through a few more of these minor yet highly noticeable changes. For the days you aren't working, British people say at the weekend, whereas Americans say on the weekend. If you're giving directions, British English says in this street, while American English says on this street. When asking for a letter, a Brit says, please write to me soon. But Americans often drop the to entirely, simply saying, please write me soon. And finally, when comparing things, British English uses different from or different to. American English uses different from or, very commonly, different than. And this brilliantly illustrates our point about group nouns, like the word team. In the UK, a team can be viewed as a group of individuals working together, which actually makes it plural. So British English sometimes says the team are playing well. But in the US, a team is viewed strictly as a single cohesive unit, so an American will always say the team is playing well. Section 5. Which English is correct? So, what does this all mean? The answer is incredibly freeing. Both are perfectly correct. I want to frame this with absolutely zero judgment. Neither system is better, smarter, or more proper than the other. They're simply two entirely valid, fully functional grammatical operating systems. What truly matters is not finding the right one, but understanding how they differ so you can navigate them seamlessly. Which leaves us with the ultimate takeaway. Who are you speaking to? Your audience dictates your usage. If you're writing a business proposal for a company in London, double those L's and definitely use the present perfect. If you're emailing a team in Chicago, throw in a Z and feel free to use the simple past. The power is now entirely in your hands to adapt, connect, and communicate flawlessly no matter where your words are landing. But it makes you wonder, as the world becomes increasingly connected online, will these two English operating systems eventually merge into one? Thank you so much for joining me to figure out this language puzzle. See you in our next explainer.